I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not be afraid of the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. If you've been looking at our website, starborninstitute.org, you'd already know that the title of tonight's show is Resisting Temptation. Oh, that doesn't sound like any fun at all, does it? But you might be wise to do that this week, because there are 5 planets in the fixed signs that are all harshly squaring and opposing each other. And remember, fixed signs don't budge. So there could be a lot of trouble brewing, particularly financial trouble brewing, because this harsh T-square in fixed signs involves both financial signs, Taurus and Scorpio. And so you would be very wise if you could exercise a little restraint and resist temptation this week, because believe me, any kind of overindulgence that you may participate in could really get you in a heap of trouble this week. Or it can be that if you sort of go overboard for somebody or something, that overindulgence could really cost you. And that is because today the Sun and Venus and Mars in Leo are squaring Uranus in Taurus, a fixed financial sign. Mars is a malefic planet, and Uranus is also a malefic planet, meaning that they can cause trouble. And since Uranus is in Taurus, it means there can be financial trouble, perhaps stemming from some of the things that Leo rules. But at the same time, that Uranus in Taurus is opposing the moon in Scorpio, and all 3 planets in Leo are squaring that moon in Scorpio, which is the other fixed financial sign. So it's bad enough that planets can be squaring the financial signs, but it's even worse if there are planets in those signs. That makes the trouble more acute. And that is why, if you can resist temptation this week, you would be far ahead, and your budget would be preserved in one way or another. Because after all, Leo rules children, and it rules love affairs and romance, and certainly good times, and it rules extravagance and gambling and horse racing and the whole entertainment field, and it rules a leadership and courage. It also rules the heart, the back, and the blood supply. So if you're going to overdo it at all, you could run into a little trouble, because there are so many different varieties of temptation. For instance, with Mars and Venus and the Sun in Leo, you could have some sort of sudden romantic fling that might produce a child. Uh-oh, that could be expensive. Or it can be that there can be some person around who is very passionate and wants to control others, and so some sort of passionate crime could produce horrific results. And remember, Mars rules greed, envy, hate, and jealousy. And so that could come about. Or it can be that if you enjoy the good life a little bit too much, that could generate some impulsive gambling right now. And if you lose at all, then you could be facing increased debt and perhaps even financial ruin. So there are good reasons why you should try to resist temptation this week. But the main reason is that if you go overboard at all, it is going to cost you more than it's worth. And so, you know, this is a week, remember, it's just for 1 week, but still, you should say no and mean it this week, because you'd be a lot better off financially if you did that. Because there are other ways that you could get in a little financial trouble. What if you wanted to have some sort of sudden new start? Well, that's certainly possible, because the Sun, Venus, and Mars in Leo are beautifully trining Jupiter in Sagittarius, and together those 4 planets are trining the sign of Aries, which does rule new starts. So what if you suddenly decided you were going to plan a long-distance trip that was very expensive? After all, that's what Sagittarius rules, long-distance travel. or you were offering to pay the tuition for someone to go to a rather expensive school. Well, that could really put a dent in your budget. It could increase costs right now that you were not anticipating, and that could lead to financial tension or pressure as well. And in fact, there are 3 planets that are in a beautiful grand trine in the water signs right now. Venus is in Cancer, it's trining the moon in Scorpio, and it's also trining Neptune in Pisces. So that simply means that even justice, which is very necessary, can be rather expensive right now, as more and more people can be implicated in some sort of illegal activity as their secrets or their activities behind the scenes are revealed. So there's all kinds of ways that you could be facing financial pressure this week if you get involved in something that's a little bit too pricey for your budget, or you've already been involved in activities that could generate some sort of financial fine, for instance. So if you have already taken a gamble and loss, your loss is now going to be very expensive. And that's why if you haven't done that yet, you should try to resist temptation this week. Okay, what does it mean for all 12 of the sun signs? Well, Aries, for you, I think you could be involved in some sort of quick new start because, oh boy, you've got a lot of planets backing you up right now, Aries. The Sun, Venus, and Mars in Leo are trining your Sun, and Jupiter in Sagittarius is also trining your Sun. So it's you that might be planning an expensive trip or thinking of paying for something that's rather high priced right now. Remember, that's going to put a little dent in your budget. And also, Aries, I think one good reason for you to resist temptation this week, in other words, just, you can have fun, but don't go overboard, is because there are 4 retrograde planets right now, and they are all right behind your sun sign. And that is because Neptune is right behind your sun sign in Pisces, and it's retrograde. Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn are retrograde, and they're squaring your sun sign. And then that Jupiter in Sagittarius is retrograde and is trining your sun sign. What it means to have 4 retrograde planets right behind your sign, Aries, is that in the background of your life, there is some unfinished business. And you have to go back and, sort of finish it up or tie up some loose ends, and you really won't be able to go forward the way you would like until you get something tied up or finished up from the past. So I suggest you try that first. That'll keep you out of trouble, I hope. Okay, what does it mean to a Taurus? Well, Taurus, you really can't afford to take a gamble on anything right now, so don't, Taurus. And the reason why is that Uranus is in your sign. And yes, it is being trined by Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, which means your long-term interests can be working out pretty well. Say a plan for a retirement fund, okay, and that might be working out. But oh boy, you can't take a gamble now, Taurus, because the Sun, Venus, and Mars are all squaring Uranus in your sign, and the moon in Scorpio, the other fixed financial sign, is opposing that Uranus. So you really cannot afford to take a gamble with anything. And that means that if you are able to say no and mean it this week and resist temptation, it's not forever, but it would really, that would be kind to your budget, Taurus. And so you really need to sort of turn your back on something, no matter how enticing it is. Or if it's a person, just scale down a little bit or cool off a little bit, because you'll be saving your budget from an intense harm. Because I don't think that you can win a gamble right now, and any kind of overindulgence is going to generate a very high price for you, Taurus. So I hope that you step back this week. It's for the good of your budget. What does it mean to a Gemini? Well, Gemini, there aren't any planets in the air signs once again, but there are a lot of planets that are very direct and forceful right ahead of your sign. Venus is in Cancer. It's involved in a grand trine in water signs, which is nice. Not Venus, but Mercury. And then the Sun, Venus, and Mars in Leo are sextiling your Sun. So it's that Mercury, Cancer. That's 4 planets that are direct right ahead of your Sun sign. And that's good because it means other people have a lot of momentum and they sort of want you to join them. They want you to sort of step into a role. It could even be a leadership role. But Gemini, I'm going to advise you not to overdo it. Nobody should overdo it right now. And that's because it could increase their costs or their debt, and in the end it would just be way too expensive. So what you ought to do, Gemini, is take a look at what everyone else is doing, but sit on the sidelines right now. Just sort of watch what everybody else is doing. It doesn't mean you can't participate, but you don't have to put anything of yours on the line right now, Gemini, so don't do that. Just withhold comment if you can, or don't make a commitment this week. Just wait and see what everyone else is doing first. And that's because there's no support in the air signs. There's nothing backing you up right now, even though there is a lot of momentum for you to go forward. Okay, what does it mean to a Cancer? Well, Cancer, remember I mentioned there is a very nice grand trine in the water signs. And that is because Mercury in your sign is now direct. It's at 27 degrees. It's the planet of communication. So there should be some good communication coming your way, or it might be coming from you, Cancer. Maybe you have some good news. And that Mercury in your sign is trining Neptune in Pisces, and it's also being trined by the moon in Scorpio today. So part of the good news that you can be involved with, Cancer, is about money. And that's because Scorpio is a fixed financial sign. And the moon is there, and the moon is your own ruler. It's you that could be getting some good news about money that had been delayed for a while that could be coming your way, and it should be. In fact, it's sort of a matter of justice. In order to be fair, you should be getting your share. So you may get news about that soon, or maybe just right now, Cancer. If you have good news for everybody, it can be about a real estate matter or a family matter, and it can be something that promotes healing in one way or another. So either way, I think you're going to be doing okay this week, Cancer. Good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Leo? Well, Leo, this is a time when, of course, you can still be supercharged because Mars is in your sign, and that is a planet of energy and dynamic force, even aggression. And the Sun and Venus are also in your sign, and they're all being trined by Jupiter in Sagittarius. So together the 4 planets are trining the sign of Aries as well. That means you could be eager to make a new start. You certainly could be full of enthusiasm. Leos have very sunny personalities because the sun rules your sign. And it's summertime as well. So you could be looking for a lot of fun, but oh boy, Leo, if you overindulge, it is going to cost you. And it's going to cost you more than it's worth. And the reason why is that Uranus in Taurus is squaring the 4 planets in your sun sign, and Taurus is a fixed financial sign in dealing with investments. So there could be sudden change there. And also the planets in your sign are squaring the moon in Scorpio. And that rules money coming in from any other source. It also rules taxes and credit and loans and insurance proceeds. And so those things can be changing in your life, Leo, in one way or another. The value of your investments could go up or down, or money that had been owed to you for one reason or another perhaps is going to have high taxes attached to it. That could put a little dent in your budget too. So this really is an important time for you not to let your emotions get overheated. That could create problems, and not to go overboard on anything. Doesn't sound like much fun, does it, Leo? But it's only for a week or so. And so if you could just say no and mean it, and sort of just stick to business and do modest things within a small budget, you would be way ahead of the pack by that time that is over, Leo. So I hope you can practice modesty and restraint this week. It will do you a lot of good. Okay, what does it mean to a Virgo? Well, Virgo, This is a time when I think there can be quite a bit of activity behind the scenes in your life because the Sun, Venus, and Mars are all in Leo right behind your Sun sign. But Virgo, that means that you could be feeling romantic behind the scenes. It also means you could be willing to take chances in one way or another. And yet your sign, Virgo, is not a sign that likes to take a gamble on anything. Your sign is very methodical and detail-oriented and generally likes to base their opinions on facts, proven facts. So you need to stick to that, Virgo. This isn't quite your time to shine yet, but this is a very good time for you to be a good example of how to employ restraint so that you don't go overboard in any way. You could be a good model for that because Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn are trining your Sun. So if you're a little more quiet than usual this week, or you're a little bit more careful with your bookkeeping this week, that's a good idea, Virgo, because one thing you really don't like is to waste money. It doesn't mean you don't have money, but you don't like to waste it or blow it on anything. So I don't think you're going to have any problem resisting temptation this week, but remember, it's good for all of us to sort of employ restraint. And if you do that, you'll be fine. Okay, what does it mean to a Libra? Well, Libra, this is a time when you can certainly enjoy having fun because the Sun, Venus, and Mars in Leo are sextiling your Sun, and Jupiter in Sagittarius is also sextiling your Sun, and that Moon is in Scorpio right ahead of your Sun sign. There's a lot of planets around you that can offer you opportunities for either doing something rather fun or extravagant, which I hope you don't do, or just plain doing things that you're real serious about. And if you do that, if you go that route, Libra, and you sort of settle down and look at your budget and say, okay, this is how I can manage this, or this is how I can manage that, then you're going to be real happy at the end of the day that you have not taken a gamble or that you're not going overboard on anything. This is a time for you to just think, okay, let's live on a budget, and even a smaller budget. That would be just fine, because if you practice restraint, you will have no regrets. And that's important right now. And so what's a week of restraint? It's nothing, Libra. You can still have fun. And besides, your sign rules beauty and peace and partnership. And you know, you can do that in a million thoughtful ways that don't cost any money at all. And so I hope you try that this week. Okay, what does it mean to a Scorpio? Well, Scorpio, this is a time when I think you can be rather lucky as far as some financial news goes, because Venus or Mercury in Cancer is trining your Sun where the Moon is today, and also Neptune in Pisces is trining your Sun sign. So it may be that you're able to straighten out some financial affairs in a very fair way. Maybe justice will be done right now in a fair way, and that could be due to information behind the scenes that is now being revealed. And you know, people who have done something wrong, they'll have to pay for it, but if you've been just sort of following all the rules, you should be just fine. You may get some very good news about a family member or a real estate matter, because that Mercury is now direct in Cancer and trining your Sun. You may also get some good news about some sort of an ending that turns out rather well. I don't know if it's your ending or somebody else's, but it can turn out well. And that too would be somewhat fair and just. So I think you're going to be fine as long as you are sort of quiet this week, Scorpio. But believe me, if you go overboard on anything, you are going to pay through the nose. It will be far more expensive to you than you realize. And that is because Uranus in Taurus is opposing the Moon in your sign right now, and Mars, Venus, and the Sun in Leo are squaring your Sun sign, and Mars is your own ruler. You are vulnerable to financial loss if you take a gamble on anything, so I hope you don't, because resisting temptation is the way to stay financially solvent right now. So I hope you do that. Just say no and mean it. Okay, what does it mean to a Sagittarian? Well, Sagittarius, this is a time when you can certainly be very enthusiastic about doing something new. It could be involving travel, because that's what your sign rules, and Jupiter is in your sign, so you could be very optimistic about future plans, and perhaps even a little extravagant about them, which could put a dent in your budget, Sagittarius. And then the Sun, Venus, and Mars and Leo are trining your Sun, which means that you could be getting a lot of support from other people, and you could be very popular. You could even be a little surprised that you're so popular, but there's nothing wrong with that as long as you don't go overboard, Sagittarius. So you've got to remember to use restraint in all things, not just in your actions, but in your budget. You don't need to be the big spender this week, Sagittarius. Just cool down a little bit or live on less. You'll be glad you did. Okay, what does it mean to a Capricorn? Well, Capricorn, this is a time when I think that you should sort of stay the way you are. And what I mean is that a Capricorn is naturally a little frugal, and they tend to watch their money, and they like to, Capricorns are very security prone. And so there's always a little something tucked away somewhere. And you should keep it there, Capricorn. Do not take a risk or a gamble on anything this week. What if you saw something that you've been dying for and you've got the money and you know you can afford it? You still shouldn't spend the money this week, Capricorn. I mean, if you really love it, it'll be there next week. But this is not the week for anybody to threaten their finances in any way by overindulging or just being extravagant or overly generous. This is just not the time. And the reason why it's particularly important for you is because there's only one planet trining your sun sign, and that is Uranus in Taurus. But that Uranus in Taurus is part of this very harsh T-cross in fixed signs. It is vulnerable in a way that makes you vulnerable, Capricorn. And that's why you need to kind of scale down. Don't spend a lot of money. You can have fun, but don't spend a lot of money doing it. And just keep your hands on the purse strings and keep them tied up if you can. And that's because the only support you got is very threatened right now. Lots of people are more financially threatened than they realize at the moment, not because of their own actions, but due to matters beyond their control. And that's why we all have to be a little more quiet and cautious this week. So I hope you are. Okay, what does it mean to an Aquarian? Well, Aquarius, this is a time when, yes, once again, you have to be really, really careful with the money. And that is because the Sun, Venus, and Mars are all opposing your sun sign. That means, remember, that someone else wants to take control, someone else wants to be the leader, have things their way, and could even be a little bit jealous of you, Aquarius, or else their needs are much more important to them than your needs are to them. And so those planets are opposing your sun sign forcefully, and there are no planets in the air signs to fortify your sign. And on top of that, Uranus in Taurus, your own ruler, is squaring your sun sign, and it's under harsh attack from the planets in Leo and can't be much help to you. And then the moon in Scorpio is also squaring your sun sign, and that simply means that there could be a tax problem now that you didn't realize you had, or there could be some sort of increase in the cost of credit, or there could be some money that you thought was coming your way that is delayed again for one reason or another. So you have to be really careful. Remember, nobody can go overboard this week. And by going overboard, I mean overindulging. And so, you know, we all have to be little saints this week is what we have to be, but that won't kill us. That's not such a bad deal. Just try to be as angelic as you can. And I know that you'll succeed at that, Aquarius, because you are a person who, Aquarius is the sign of the humanitarian, and Aquarians have vision. So just look further down the road at a dream that you have, Aquarius, and don't get involved in any of the financial pressures around you this week. It will cost you more than it's worth. Okay, what does it mean to a Pisces? Well, Pisces, this is a time when you can be getting some pretty good news, and that is because that Mercury in Cancer is trining your sun. So the good news would be about a family member, or about a real estate matter, or even about some ending that has ended rather well. It's turned out okay. I mean, it might be an ending, but people can be satisfied with that. Or it can be that there can be more money coming your way, Pisces. And the reason why is that the gentle moon is in Scorpio today, and it too is trining your sun where you have Neptune. That Neptune is retrograde right now. It has been retrograde for a long time in your sign, indicating that it's good for you to go back and sort of think things over, reassess the things that you've done earlier in the year. And you know, you may see that things have worked out in a way that can make you happier, or it can bring you a sense of calm finally. No matter what else has been happening this year, you should be able to feel a little calmer right now. And that's good, Pisces, because there is a health matter of yours, maybe just a small one, but you need to nip it in the bud before it gets bigger. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because in a week or two, we are having another new moon, and it will be in Virgo with 5 planets opposing your sun sign. So there is some sort of health matter that I think you should quietly attend to. And that way it won't be more expensive down the road. So I hope you do that and that you enjoy your good news. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, you can see the show, read our blog, and hear our podcast on our website, starborninstitute.org. Bye.